G'day everyone, I'm Wayne Dowsent from Wayne Dowsent Fine Art, and this is a portrait of a young Allan Brideoake and his lovely wife Ruth.
Allan and Ruth served with the Australian Army during World War II. This is part one of Allan Brideoake's interview, and it's one of the most amazing stories Jackie and I have ever heard.
Can you tell me where you were born, Allan?
Born at Cootamundra.
Right.
Born at Cootamundra on the 6th of the 6th, 1920. And my father's family had a big property at Narendra. He was a good man. And he had big falling out with the family, walked out and went to the war. And early in 1915, or before that, he had a good education. He went to King's School in Goulburn, my dad. He was a well-educated man. And, but anyhow, he left that big property out there at Narendra and joined up and went away. And his service number was 10843, I think it was, 10843. And he went to the Middle East. They trained it in the Middle East for a while before they went to France. And he saw a bit of action there, and then they went into a big show there, and a shell landed alongside of him, and he, as I say, lost his left eye. And he had shrapnel. My mother used to pull shrapnel out of his neck till the day he died, all up on the right side of his neck. And he got a dose of gas, and he ended up in a hospital in England. And my mother was a nursing sister there, and she nursed him. And as he got better, he wasn't fit enough. He was to go back to the front line, so he joined an orderly medical unit, helping the sick, and were part-time nursing they were. And then when the time came, the war ended, he was brought home. But anyhow, he got a farm in the Junee area, had a record wheat crop. The depression hit, 1929, 9 a bushel. Anyhow, he finished up losing the farm. I was going to school then at a little village called Illabo. I just started school there, and we packed up, and then we went out west. He went to a little town called Talimba, not far from West Elliot, Joe Madeley country. Dad started butchering there, and he batted on, and we just didn't, everything, nobody had any money. And people don't understand how bad things were. It doesn't matter how you could have things that were no good to you. Because if you had a big car or big animal, bull or car, horse, nobody had any money to buy it off you. There was just no money. The time came, and I was 19, just nearly turned 20, and I joined the army. I wanted to join the army when war broke out, and my father said, hang on, see what happens, hold us. He was a First World War digger. So anyhow, when France fell, we thought, well, there goes, we're all got to go. So 8 of us all joined up, went to Wagga in June 1940. Went to Wagga and joined up, and did a lot of rookie training there for about a month, and then to Walgrove. You know where Walgrove is, down near Sydney. From there we had a big training there, and then we went to Bathurst, trained hard at Bathurst.
Well, what sort of training did you complete, Allan?
Infantry training.
Mm-hmm. And what did that consist of?
Rifle drill, shooting, endurance, climbing under, you name it. And no, we were quite good at the finish, and we went there. Went on the Queen Mary 1. From there went to Malaya. Landed at Singapore, taken up in the middle of Malaya. This boy was coming around, and he had this Malay note, and he was getting signatures put on it, you know, where you come from, and you know, we're all come from out in the Riverina. But anyhow, the story goes with that. That was found up in after the war. Well, it was only just recently, 3 or 4 years ago. This chap had found it. He bought it for $1 or $2, you know, at a junk sale. And he turned it over and looked at it, and he said, "There's something behind all this." And he researched it and found out, you know, just by names, he found out the 2nd 19th Battalion boys. Anyhow, we knew what was coming to us. We thought everybody at home thought it was a holiday over there. But the time come, we went into it. And there was a big battle of Muir, and it was a shocking turnout. And we struck the first Australians struck the Japs there. Division of the Tokyo Guards, the big, well-trained, big fellows, enormous Japs. We held them for 3 days, and we had about 1.5 miles wounded. We couldn't get them over the bridge. The Japs had the bridge. Our commanding officer got the VC there, and the wounded we couldn't get over. The Japs massacred them all, shot them and burnt them. There's one bloke got away. He told the story of it afterwards. But anyhow, it was these reinforcements come. The poor fellows had only been in the army a fortnight. They came to us, and a boatload of reinforcements arrived, and they spread out amongst us fellows. Found out that they couldn't even load and fire a rifle. So we were sent down the creek with a box of ammunition we had to teach them how to load and fire a rifle, take aim. We had kerosene tins up and they were firing at them. Went into action the next night. This particular lad, he was hit in the head, and was left for dead. Anyhow, the Japs got him. He come around, the Japs got him, tied his hands behind his back, sat him over a hole, and proceeded to execute him with their swords. They let fly at him, swiped at him, and he fell into the hole. And he was still conscious. He laid in the hole. He doesn't know how long he laid there. He crawled out of it and found an old fish tin and cut the ropes off his wrist. And an old Chinese lady found him, and I think she gave him a drink. And anyhow, they took him out to Changi, and they could track the maggots dropping out of his neck, going into the hospital. But he's still alive today, that boy. My officer was killed that night, and we were told to shift. We dig in first. We had to dig in, and so the next thing they come around, we've got to move so many 100 yards up. Bed down here, no, don't bother digging in. We'll be in action at 8 o'clock in the morning, roughly. So I can remember we're all tired, very, very tired. We were asleep standing up. Anyhow, I'd had a little snooze, and I was just in shirt and shorts, and I felt a bit cold, and I'm trying to put my head in the tin hat, and I saw a towel hanging on a tree just near me. I put that around my shoulders, and I'm making myself comfortable. bang, up goes all the lights, and all these blokes sound asleep on the ground, and getting the bayonet and shooting them, and because I was awake really, I flew on my feet, and it was a bit of hand to hand then for a good while. Then they were screaming go for the ridge, and went over the ridge. That's where I copped one in the arm, and I had 4 or 5 packets of cigarettes in my little pack on behind my shoulders and couldn't find a good cigarette in it. So I was getting a bit close there, and I laid there for gasping. My mouth was as dry as that carpet. Couldn't hardly talk. And I heard water running somewhere, and I went down, and you wouldn't believe it, it was a sewerage thing. And there's water running out, and I had a drink of that. Hit my mouth. And then I heard one of my mates there, he wanted a drink, and I knew him. And he was hit, he got one there, and it came out behind his shoulder. And I put a field dressing on him. And when we'd been that, I don't know how to describe it, every time we went in, it was nearly every man for himself. They'd botch it. And I started thinking of ways out. If a thing goes wrong, well, on my right behind was a big oil refinery burning. And I thought, now turn around, that's got to be on my left in front to get out of this. That's what I did. Thought, you know, right. Well, when we got over the top, there's about 8 or 10 of us, or a dozen of us, I don't know how many. And one fellow decided, looking for the most senior man, and he said he was a warrant officer, and he was going to take charge. Righto, good, we should lead on. So anyhow, I said, hold on. I said, you're going the wrong way. And he started to stand over me, and I stood my ground. And anyhow, arguing there, and then some of the boys, he said, where do you come from? They asked him, where did he come from? He said, some part of the city. And they said, where do you come from? I said, right out in the back country in the bush. I said, we're going to follow you. I said, right. So he was going to charge me, he was going to get my name and number, and going to court-martial me when I got out of this, and I told him what to do, and so we lead on. So we went on, we run into Japs, and we all got together and we all had a hand grenade or 2 each. We all charged this mob of Japs and we got through, thrown hand grenades and kept running. Lucky enough we all got through. And anyhow, this boy that was wounded in the shoulder, I can't think of his name, he ended up a postmaster at Allan near Dowsent. Anyhow, we finished up nearly getting out, and the Australians, or the other crowd were in front of us. I don't know whether British or Australians now. We were in this lallang grass, keeping their heads down. We're in no man's land, see? And there's shots fired over our heads and everything, and we weren't going to lift our nose up. And lying in, this poor fellow he got a fever, and he's in a mess. And I saw him, he had a fountain pen. There was no biros those days. He had a fountain pen and he squirted the ink into his palm of his hand, and now to get some moisture in his mouth. Yeah, desperate. And but anyhow, we got out of that. We finished up signalling, and we were talking Cootamundra and Sydney and Harbour Bridge, and talking to these blokes. We didn't want them to shoot us. Anyhow, right, I come forward and be recognised. So anyhow, we got out of that. And you know that Sergeant Major bloke just went, he disappeared in a second. Yes, he disappeared. I don't know who he was. I'd like to punch him in the nose before he went. But anyhow, that's how we got out of that one. The ex-battalion, and that was recognised as a complete wipeout. But anyhow, we were just outnumbered and backed all the way down to Singapore. We fought the landing. It was all a big setup. It was all shocking turnout. We were sold down the drain. And just up in the Johor Palace, just over the causeway from Singapore in Malaya, he had his big palace there looking all over Singapore. Nobody's allowed to touch that was their OPIP station, the Japs. We weren't allowed to touch it. Yeah, the Japs knew where we were all the time from there. Shelled us. And they finished up, they cut the water supply off from Singapore. Of course it came from Johor over Malaya, they cut the water supply off. The power was cut off with about 7 million people on Singapore Island. And we were out of ammunition. We had no ships, we had no air force. The Japs had the lot. And better equipment than us. Much more modern. We had 14 armoury, 303 rifles. They had automatic weapons, or they were better equipped than us. That's where we finished up, they surrendered. We had to hand all our guns in, and they marched us about 15 miles into Changi. We had to fence ourselves in when we got out there in the Cellaring barracks, which belonged to the Gordon Highlanders. There were barracks, they were peacetime. They were the permanent troops there before the war. And that's where we went to. But I was only in Changi for a little while. Changi, we called it a rest home. There's no Japs over you there. You just had your own boss, and he was bad enough too. Black Jack Galligan, he was pretty hard. And day to day, very, very short of food. We were always hungry. We didn't get enough to eat. Because the Changi and his sick blokes there, well, you just had to look after one another, help look after one another. We were taught that, to look after one another, and all that sort of thing. There was a lot of trading going on. We used to get out under the fences at night, get out, and the Chinese were good to us. Chinese hated the Japs. And you'd get out, we had places where we could get out, crawl under the barbed wire, and there'd be a native take you over. You'd go and do a deal with some blokes, and they'd escort you back again and make sure everything was clear for you to get back in again. We used to do scrounging. We'd get out and we were getting food for our mates and that, were sick and that. Yes, boys, and then I went to work in at the wharves in Singapore, and that was just out of this world. I used to remember the lights had come on early in the morning in the big hall we were in, up before daylight, have a bit of rice for breakfast. You're all bundled outside, lined up, and the Japs would come along and take a section of us to work. And they had all these go-downs along the wharf. Singapore before the war was a big distributing place. Boats would take it everywhere, and we wouldn't know what wharf we were on. But these boys were trading. We'd trade with the outsiders. And a kid had come up to you that high, he's looking for something. He'd ask if he'd get it. Well, I didn't have it. But when you got up in the morning, you're just ready to go out, that'd be like an auction room. Anybody got this? Anybody got that? Anybody got that? Yes, yes. So one thing we want, lipstick was a great currency. It was wonderful. So that kid that asked you, and probably about 2,000 blokes out lined up, that kid would find you next morning. He's a little fella. He'd pull out a roll of notes and pay you. You couldn't put it over him for a cent. Oh, you'd come home when we had boots then. A bob chain was good currency. You could fold that up and put it in the bottom of your boot. Walk home. 2 tins, we probably had shorts then. We had shorts instead of the G-strings later on. You'd hang it, fork your trousers, you'd hang a tin of, small tin or something. Get home, get past. But look out if you got caught, you got a real good bashing. And but that's the way we lived, and we were pretty good there. And then we were all recalled and went back out to Changi. That's where I got sent back out to Changi early. There was a Jap running around with a pick handle there once. Went off his rocket, and I put my hand up to block one with the head. He broke us, we broke my wrist. Yeah, had to put the plaster on the bashed up claret plaster walls, took the string out of it and punched it up into a powder and made a plaster for me. And it still wasn't set, but they pulled it back in. My wrist was sitting up here, and first aid boys pulled it back. And word come through, we're going to Burma, Thailand. Then that's when I thought, well, I'm cutting this plaster off. And they all went cook on me, you know, muds. Go, you're supposed to say out up near where it landed, that's where you went. Fate sort of business, but I said, no, I'm not stopping here with you blokes going up there. It saved my life, I think, by going up. If I had stopped there the next month or 5 weeks, that lot I'd have been with then went to Borneo. I'd have been in the Sundakan death march there. I think there's 2,500 Australians there and 6 survivors. We ended up, got to Singapore railway station, all lined up on the station. There's a Jap to each carriage, each van. We were in lever vans, steel lever vans, mind you, and about 28 to each van. And there's a big tub of old zinc washing tub full of rice. That's got to do us for 5 days to get up there. And I can still remember a dopey looking Jap on Allan. He's looking at the tub of rice. He's staring at it, he's staring at it. No, they could put anything in there, and the bloke's done not to wake up, so he put his bayonet in it, a couple of times lifted it up come a set of earphones. We had radio, and we carried the earphones. One of our blokes jumped forward and screamed at the Jap, you know, don't touch it, leave it alone, he says. For a doctor, Allan Brideoake, you know, put the earphones on and put it on his chest. Oh, righto, good, put it back again. So we got up there with the earphones. But for 5 days up there, well, it was a shocker. Heat. The Jap used to sit in the doorway, leave it open a bit, trying to get a bit of air in. Dysentery. Terrible. Blokes came, nearly dying for a drink. This heat's nothing. We were in that, and the train would pull up for water, and you could get out. They'd get out and relieve themselves. But still the poor blokes there were in there with dysentery and It was a shopping trip. But we got up there and then we started on these forced marches.